Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the equations unit. We're going to be starting unit 3 with two-step equations. So if you don't have your calculator, go ahead and grab it. Let's get started right now. Welcome to Unit 3. We're going to start Unit 3 by talking about two-step equations. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So remember, whenever we're trying to solve an equation, we must always use the inverse operations to isolate the variable. So we're always trying to use inverse operations to isolate the variable. So step 1, we're going to eliminate the constant by either using plus or minus or addition or subtraction. And then we're going to eliminate the coefficient in step 2 by either multiplying or dividing. So let's see how that works right now. So here we are at example A, and it says solve the equation using the inverse operation. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a wall down from this equal sign to separate the two sides of the equation. You don't need to do that, but it helps me understand what's on one side of the equation and what's on the other. Because remember, we're going to be using inverse operations on both sides. So now I've got 8x plus 31 equals 15, so I'm going to be removing the constant first. So that's the number without the variable, so I've got plus 31. So the opposite of plus 31 is minus 31, so I'm going to subtract 31 from both sides. And I can use my calculator here if I don't know my integer rules. Positive 31 and negative 31 are going to cancel out, leaving me just 8x on one side. 15 minus 31 leaves me negative 16. So now I've got just a one-step equation. I've got 8x equals negative 16. So I'm going to be performing the inverse operation. The inverse of times 8, which is 8 next to the x, which is multiplication. And the opposite of that is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 8. These are going to 8 divided by 8 is going to give me 1 or 1x. So I can just write x. You don't have to write the 1. Negative 16 divided by 8. A negative divided by a positive is going to be a negative. And 16 divided by 8 is 2. Again, if you don't know your integer rules, feel free to use your calculator. Now I'm going to put a box around my x equals negative 2 because that is the right answer. And I want it to be easily found on my paper. Let's go on to the next one. So here we are at practice number 1, and it says solve the equation using the inverse operations. You've got two problems there for you to try on your own. So I want you to go ahead and pause the video, use the inverse operations, do the best that you can, and then press play again to see if you are right. How'd you do? Were you able to get both answers correct? I've got x equals 7 and x equals negative 16. If your answers don't match mine, look through my work, see where you made your mistake, and go ahead and correct it. And let's go on to the next example. So here in example B, it says solve the equation using the inverse operations. I've got negative 3 plus n divided by 5 equals negative 7. So I'm going to start by drawing my wall because I want my two sides of my equation separated. Then I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my constant. That's a negative 3. There's no variable there, so I know I need to get rid of my negative 3. To get rid of negative 3, I'm going to add 3 on both sides. Then I'm going to draw a line to separate my steps. Negative 3 and positive 3 are going to cancel. I'm going to bring down my n plus 5. Don't forget the sign. In this case, it's a positive, so I don't need to worry about that. But bring down my positive n divided by 5. Negative 7 plus 3. Again, if I don't know my integer rules, I could use my calculator, but I'm going to end up with negative 4. So now I'm going to go to the next step, and I've got n divided by 5. I need the inverse operation of that, so the opposite of division is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 5. 5 over 1 over 5 is all going to reduce down to 1, or 1n. Negative 4 times positive 5 is going to give me a negative. 4 times 5 is 20, so negative 20. And that gives me my final answer, which I'm going to put a box around. If you understand that, great. If not, go ahead and take a look at my work a little while longer, and then let's go ahead on to the next practice problem. So here we are. We got a couple practice problems here in practice number 2. I want you to go ahead and do the best that you can on them using your inverse operations and your calculator if needed. So go ahead and pause the video, try these two problems on your own, then press play again to see if you are right. All right, how did you do? Did you able to get the same answers that I got, negative 6 and 52? If you did, great. If not, go ahead and take a look at my work, see where your mistake may lie, and then fix the problem. And let's go on to the next example. So here we are at example C, solve the equation using the inverse operation. So again, I'm going to start by drawing my wall. Then I've got negative y divided by 6 and plus 2. So I know my plus 2 is my constant, so I'm going to eliminate that by subtracting 2 on both sides. Drawing a line between my steps. bring down my y divided by 6, but do not forget the sign. It's very important that you remember the sign. In this case, it's negative y over 6. 4 minus 2 is 2. Now I've got y divided by negative 6, and I'm going to have to get rid of my coefficient. So I've got to get rid of both the negative and the 6, not just the negative and not just the 6. So to get rid of that, I'm going to multiply by negative 6. The negative times the negative will give me a positive, which will leave me with just positive y. And then negative 6 and 6 and the 6 will cancel out to give me just 1y. And then I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 6. 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. Go ahead and take a look at my work if you're not sure where to go next, and then let's go on to the final practice problems. Here we are at practice problem number 3, and we got a couple practices for you to do there. I want you to go ahead and pause the video, do the best that you can, and then press play again to see if you are right. How'd you do? Were you able to get the same answers that I got? Hopefully you did. If not, go ahead and take a look through my work to figure out where your errors are and fix your paper. That brings us to the end of this note. So if you like this video, go ahead and throw us a thumbs up. If you love this video, go ahead and throw us a sub, and we will catch you in the next one.